Welcome to Already One. Our mission is to help you thrive.
When I think about the word thriving for me, I think first and foremost, it's less about what we do and more about who we are.
Welcome to Already One Sports Friends podcast. We are back, season 5. We're going to thrive. We're here with myself, Ben Wellman, the Wildcat, with the Mad Dog, Kyle Apps. Welcome, Mad Dog.
We're here. I mean, I didn't know if season 5 should exist, but we're starting it. I think it'll be great. I mean, there's potential. The green is not toxic, people. The green color we're using is just to give something different than our other previous colors, but it's about thriving, growing. Green means growth, not toxic. Growth, people.
That's right. So true, Mad Dog. So within that, I think to start off the season, we're going to have a good guest. And today we have Phil Knox coming in. Now, Phil, if you're in the UK, you'll probably know him. He's someone who works for the Evangelical Alliance. He's just got a new role of head of gospel impact. So the Evangelical Alliance does loads of great things. Advocacy, it has loads of different members. It encourages church unity, which is really good. A load of individual Christians are part of the Evangelical Alliance. So it's a great organization. And Phil's been there for a while. He's been in ministry for a long time. He used to work for an organization called Youth for Christ. And today he's going to talk about how to thrive. Now, Phil, at his heart, is an evangelist and he's a missiologist. And he's done loads of different research. He's also an author. He's written, I think, 3 books. So he's written Story Bearer, he's written Best of Friends, and he's written Good News People. And so this is a guy who's more than qualified to talk about how to thrive in ministry and how to thrive in life as well. And he's also a sports fan, Mad Dog. No, you're a Man United fan. He is an Aston Villa fan as well. And they're currently battling you for 3rd and 4th place. So let's see.
Oh, I know what's going to happen. We're going to fall out of the top 5. Aston Villa could go on and take it. We'll give it to them.
Well, no matter how well Man United's doing or Newcastle, we're still thriving, and we're going to talk exactly. We're going to talk
Newcastle playing this year. I didn't see him at all.
You won't see him. You won't see him. We are certainly not thriving, but today we're talking about more than just sport. Thank goodness we're not just going to talk about sport today. We're going to go into a load of different topics about habits, spiritual practices, disciplines, and a lot of wisdom from Phil. So I think without further ado, should we get on our first guest?
Bring him in.
Let's do it.
5 to thrive.
All right, guys, please welcome to the podcast this week a very special guest from England. We have Phil Knox. Knoxy, welcome to Already One.
Come on. Hello, Wildcat and Mad Dog.
I like it. He already knows. We're in trouble, Ben. We're in trouble.
This is going to be fun. This is going to be a lot of fun. We've got a Geordie, a Brummie, an American, so it's going to be good.
It sounds like the beginning of a joke.
Yeah, I know. What's going on, Ben?
Stick around, guys. Hear the end of the joke. That's
do we walk into a church or do we walk into a bar? I'm not sure.
Well, we'll find out what Phil says we're going to do. So, so obviously, Phil, I'm in the UK with yourself. Kyle is in the States. So some of our listeners are in the States. Some are in different places in our sports friends fields. A lot of coaches that are listening. But for anyone in the States or elsewhere who hasn't really heard about yourself, just give us a bit of an introduction about who you are. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, everybody. It's such a joy to be with you. So my name's Phil. I live in Birmingham. In my part of the world, we say Birmingham. So we might need subtitles later on. I don't know. But I have the great joy of being husband to Danny. We've got 2 boys, Caleb, who's 13. His love language is football. And Josiah, who's 7. His love language is fighting. My day job is I'm an evangelist and a missiologist and part of the leadership team of a big organization in the UK called the Evangelical Alliance. We are good news people in a bad news world. I'm part of the leadership team of a local church. I am a wholehearted football fan. When I haven't got a knee injury, I love running. I'm an enthusiastic water skier, and I once broke a world record for the world's longest 5-a-side football match.
Wait, what was that last part? The world record in what?
I once upon a time was a world record breaker. We played football for 48 hours and broke the world record for the world's longest 5-a-side football match. So there you go. When I'm not doing that, I do a lot of speaking and I do a lot of writing, and love kind of being creative, but most of all, love seeing people come to know Jesus. My deep desire is wanting to see good people be good news and see people respond to the gospel.
So that was Youth for Christ, right?
My knees haven't quite been the same since. Do you know what the worst thing was, boys? You can imagine a lot of goals go in over 48 hours, and so I unfortunately was on the losing team. So we scored 600 goals. Unfortunately, the winning team scored 900 goals. So, like, basically it was 3-2, but it was still demoralizing. You'd come off after like 30 odd hours and you'd be like, how did that hour go? Oh, we've lost like 30, 20 or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Nightmare.
That's 30 goals an hour, by the way. That's a lot of goals. That's a lot of goals.
Maybe more.
Was the goalkeeper, like, did he have a cot, like a mattress? Was he sleeping at some of this?
No, but what's really funny is normally no one wants to go in goal. But when you play for 48 hours, everyone wants to go in goal because you get a bit of a rest.
Yeah. Brings a whole new meaning to parking the bus, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, great. So we got your little background, but as a Christian, what does the two words "already won" mean to you?
Yeah, I love the theme "already won." I think for me it means that we know the end of the story. And I think there's something amazing about following Jesus, especially in the uncertainty of the world in which we live at the moment, that God gives us a firm foundation on which to stand and an audacious hope to which to strive for. But also we know the end of the story. So I was reminded of this recently because with my 13-year-old, we're watching the James Bond films together. And there's this moment in Goldfinger where James Bond's about to be cut in half by a laser. And Caleb, my 13-year-old, is kind of leaning in, going, Daddy, does James Bond die? And I like pause it for a minute. And we've got the whole box set of the DVDs in front of us. I say, Caleb, look how many movies are still to come. Do you think he's about to die? He says, no, he doesn't die, does he? And I think when you know the end of the story, it changes everything. And so for me, there's something about already won that means I know the end of the story. I think it's Billy Graham who says, I've read the last page of the Bible. It all ends up all right in the end. And there's something, isn't there, like for sports fans out there, when you're watching the highlights, when you know the results and you watch them in a completely different light. And I think for us as followers of Jesus and sport enthusiasts, when you know the end result, that in the end Jesus wins, it changes everything for how you live today. And that's what already won means for me.
Love that. Fantastic. Look at that. Audacious. So love it. So good. Love that James Bond analogy. Gotta love that. Brilliant. So obviously you mentioned the Evangelical Alliance then. So I'm a proud member of the Evangelical Alliance. I signed up not just because they get like a shopping trolley token, which was a game changer. Yeah, by the way, but also because the amazing things that the Evangelical Alliance does. So tell the audience a little bit about what the Evangelical Alliance does. And then also your role. You just had a new role, right, as head of gospel impact. So talk us through a little bit about what that looks like day to day.
Yeah, come on. So the Evangelical Alliance has existed for 180 years. It's our birthday this year. And we've only existed ever to do two really simple things. First of all, to unite the church to reach the lost. And secondly, to speak up at the highest levels of government on issues that really matter to Christians. And so we do loads of stuff around equipping and inspiring the church to reach people for Jesus. But also I sit opposite the most extraordinary team who go into government and tell the government what Christians are doing, first of all, to bless society. So the government need to know what incredible job the church is doing to be a blessing in the world. But secondly, we speak up on really contentious issues like free speech. Why free speech? Because it should never be a hate crime to declare that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. We have more gospel freedoms in the UK than almost any other place on earth. We need to fight for them and keep them so people can keep finding out about Jesus. One example of that, there was a bill going through Parliament recently that would have enabled Ofsted to come into every Sunday school and youth group in the country and essentially vet what was being said. We thought that sounded more like North Korea or Saudi Arabia, government controlling private religion. So we spoke up. I'm delighted to say that as a result of that intervention, that bill's been kicked into touch for the time being. But and so Ben, I want to thank you personally for being a personal member of the Evangelical Alliance, because the way we get into the corridors of power is we represent tens of thousands of individuals, thousands of churches, and hundreds of organizations. And basically, it's a numbers game. So if you're listening to this and you're not yet a personal member of the Evangelical Alliance, like Ben, you should join us so that we maintain that voice, talking to government, telling the story about what the church is doing, but also being part of something where in the UK at the moment, God's doing something amazing and seeing people come to know Jesus, be part of that and help people encounter Jesus for the first time. But also let's speak up and be a positive, united, clear voice in the corridors of power. My job within that is the head of gospel impact. Basically, I lead a team, and our aim is to try and, first of all, discern where people are coming to faith. So we listen really well to the kind of pathways by which people are becoming Christians, but we aim to kind of inspire the church to reach out to those around them. Secondly, to put the tools in their hands to make the most of the opportunities we have. But also in the Bible, there are those who are referred to as the sons of Issachar, who understand the signs of the times and knew what Israel should do. We want to really listen and see where God is already at work in the world and join in. So we seek to discern that, listen really well, and equip and inspire church leaders to make the most of the opportunities we have to reach people for the gospel.
I heard it once that every Christian is a politician. I think that is, not that we're in office or doing it, but we have as you're living, paying taxes, as you're voting for your local politicians, your national politicians, you have to be informed and educated on what is right. And then that as you said, that speaks to you as you're going into these halls of power and being able to share and tell them, look, people are praying for you, and that really impacts people, I think. So I should hope so anyways.
Yeah.
No, so Sports Friends we try to train leaders to make an impact in their communities. We provide them with skills and gifts to lead discipleship, to lead evangelism. What does thriving look like as a Christian in the UK? What does thriving look like as a local church? In your role, what do you see that?
I think thriving, when I think about the word thriving for me, I think first and foremost, it's less about what we do and more about who we are. When I think about the kind of the teachings of the Bible about kind of what it means to be a disciple, it feels to me that it's a huge amount about character and the kind of people we're becoming before it is about kind of what we do. So I think about the fruits of the Spirit are not activity. Fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. It's about the kind of people that we are. And so, for example, right, with my kids, I'm that really annoying dad at parents' evenings. When we go to talk to our kids' teachers about how they're doing, I do care about how well they're doing in the subjects, and I'm really proud of them for what they do. But I get really annoying when I say to the teacher, "That's really brilliant. Thanks very much for all you do." But what's he like? Like, is he kind? Like, is he a good friend? Is he rude? I want to know what my son is like at school, not just kind of what he's achieving. And I think the same is true for us as followers of Jesus in terms of thriving. There's those beautiful verses in Corinthians that say, "If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal." There's that sense in which, God does care about what we do, but he cares perhaps more about what we're like and the people that we're becoming. And so I think for me, thriving looks like every day becoming more like Jesus, every day doing things with great love. And we all have different capacities and callings and things that we're called to do, but let's make sure that we thrive by doing them in the right spirit, with the right heart, and with the right character, in the sense that we're becoming more like Jesus while doing them, as well as doing great things for Jesus.
Of that thrive, becoming more like Jesus every day.
Taking notes. I know he's doing it. He's got his book. He's got 20 books. All those books behind him are just little quips, little one-liners. And he pulls them out.
You're probably in there, Phil, when you done talk. I just love those bits where I just copy them and put them in the iNote. So
yeah, that'd be our social media meme.
That's Ben. Yeah, you gotta love it. Well, that's how it sticks. I always say it sticks. When there's so much information in the world, you hear something like that, and that is literally hit the nail on the head. So awesome stuff there, really good. Now, obviously, Phil, your work and your role, you work with loads of different Christians, you work with loads of church leaders. Talk about this idea of thriving, and I know this is really important to you. Different kind of habits or spiritual practices. Yeah. Now, you used to work in youth ministry before for a long time, so. Tell us kind of what are the kind of key habits and spiritual disciplines that you're seeing right now that helps church leaders and Christians thrive in their everyday life.
Yeah, I love the way you framed it actually around kind of habits. I recently, for those who are interested in football, in the Premier League, Kyle, is it called the EPL in the US?
I know. I suffered through that for many years.
So in the EPL or the Premier League, there is really significantly this year, a footballer called James Milner has broken the record for the most Premier League appearances by any player. He made his first appearance when he was 16. He's now probably kind of my kind of age, and he has been relentless, playing for a number of different clubs at the highest level. And when people talk about James Milner, one of the things they talk about is his habits. Turning up early, showing up. James Milner is not a spectacular football player by any stretch of the imagination. He is not your kind of flamboyant, celebratory kind of player. In fact, I think there's even a kind of a joke social media account which is boring James Milner. But what he's had always is great rhythms. And I think there's something about the kind of the habit. So for me, there's loads, for me, I get up every morning. The first thing I do is I read the Bible. I have a cup of tea. I've got an orange journal. I write in there how my heart is. I'm really honest with myself. I read the Bible. And sometimes it's a psalm. Sometimes it's a psalm and another chapter. Sometimes the other day I was on my way. So I kind of had I was listening to the Bible and listened to kind of half of the book of Romans. But first thing, honest moment, prayer, Bible, rhythms. I think there's some other little rhythms in there that I think we need. I think fasting now and again is really good. I think having a really good rhythms of rest. We are created to rest. Man's first day was a day off. Have you ever thought about that? So God creates the world in 6 days. On the 6th day, man is made. The next day is the rest day. So we minister out of rest. Rest is a really important rhythm. It's modeled by Jesus. And I think for me, making sure I have a Sabbath, making sure I've got regular holidays, making sure I've got regular touch points with friends. One of my great passions is friendship. Rhythm, I make sure I see my best mate. I really try and see my best mate once a week. Those regular rhythms, a connection point. And regular rhythms together as well. I think in our individualistic world, we can just talk about some of the rhythms I've talked about solitude and doing stuff on our own, and that's important. But this morning at 6 o'clock, I was up with my wife and 2 other friends, and we've committed indefinitely to pray for our church every Thursday morning at 6 a.m. We get up and we do that, and it's painful. I was in late from London last night, but you get up and you do it because it matters. And so I think doing stuff regularly is a really important thing. And I think we can't thrive as Christians. We're created to be habitual creatures. So thinking regularly about the rhythms that we put in our world is really, really significant.
Yeah, it's great. As this podcast reaches a lot of young and new Christians. Out of those kind of spiritual practices, habits, what's one thing you wish you would have known earlier and put into practice as an earlier Christian?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is I had the real blessing actually of growing up in an amazing Christian family. So a lot of the rhythms were modeled to me really well by my parents. So I would come down in the morning and find my mum and my dad sat in the easy chairs reading their dog-eared, leather-bound Bibles, and that really modeled something to me. I think possibly as I've got older, one thing I wish I'd done sooner is begun to really invest in others. And I think we can think about spiritual practices in terms of what feeds me. Give me things that to feed me. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I think there is also the great spiritual discipline actually of discipling others. And I think I wish I possibly started that a little sooner. And as Ben knows, we first met when I was in youth ministry. So I've always had a heart for the next generation. But I think that's one thing. So I've got some things that are bringing me great joy and really stretching me at the moment. I've got a family member who's recently become a Christian, who's 18. And so we're kind of regularly meeting up with him and a few of his mates and doing a bit of discipleship together. That's really exciting. I've got another friend who's my age, who's come to faith after 20 years of being nowhere with the Lord. We meet up on another morning on Zoom, and we do a bit of kind of prayer and Bible together. That's really life-giving, I think, at kind of my kind of stage of life. And then the other thing I'd say just about kind of, I wish I'd known earlier, is I think I thought when I started putting things into practice that you put a rhythm in and it never changes. I think there's real merit in changing your spiritual disciplines and rhythms now and again and constantly refreshing, and a good example is like with my relationship with my wife. It looks different now than it did when we first met. And that's a really good, healthy thing. And I think sometimes with our relationship with God, I have moments where, for example, 6 years ago during the pandemic, the first thing I did during that really difficult season was make sure I got out of bed early and went for a walk. And I prayer walked for most of the pandemic every morning. I don't do that now because my rhythms have changed. But I think constantly asking, what can I do and what can I change up? And it's and again, bringing it back to the sport thing, tactically, managers have to reimagine their sports teams and the tactics and their approach on a regular basis to keep it fresh and to maintain their competitive edge. I think in a similar kind of way, we do the same.
Really good. I love how you mentioned a bit about friendship as well. I know you've obviously authored 2 books, one Story Bearer, worth reading around that, but also the Best of Friends as well, right? So that is a way to thrive, right? Sure, listeners to get their hands on some of those and dig into some of those topics a little bit more. Now, you've obviously said clearly you're a sports fan. You know, when you talked about James Milner, I was thinking, well, he used to play for my team, Newcastle United, then he played for Aston Villa. And he was a little bit more exciting when he played for Newcastle than Villa, before he became a little bit more boring for Liverpool. But people still called him a little bit boring, James Milner. But anyway, we know you're a massive sports fan. Now, this is a bit of a curveball. I didn't actually prep you on this one. But I think there was a year where you kind of felt convicted to give up kind of watching all sorts of sport. Now, for us on to work with sports friends, this is actually a really big thing, like actually the idol of sport. And I would like you to talk a little bit about this when it comes to thriving. What did the Lord convict you to do, and what did you do? And I want to know how you did it, because
what the rules were. Get the rules of play. So yeah, I mean, I think like many of us, you know, I think it's Tim Keller who says an idol is when a good thing becomes an ultimate thing. So like when we think about sin, so much of it is, I think we kind of categorize some things that are always wrong, and some things are always wrong. But some things, God-given created things, when they become more important than God, become idolatrous. You know, and sometimes I guess in my mind, I've got a kind of picture of the throne of my life. And Jesus belongs on the throne of my life. But occasionally in all of our lives, what happens is other things, they can be really good things, where food, money, relationships, family, even church, those things can go on the throne of our lives instead of Jesus. And we have to regularly audit our hearts and go, can I dethrone those things that have taken God's place and put Jesus back on the throne of our lives? Well, about 10 years ago, I felt really convicted that sport had become the thing regularly on the throne of my life. I was thinking about it too much. I was watching too much of it. And, you know, in my heart of hearts, I knew that it had become really important, to the extent that I felt the Lord sometimes go, Phil, would you give this up for me? Now, hear me really well. Sport is a God-given thing, and we don't, you know, it's not sinful to watch sport, but it does become sinful when it becomes more important than Jesus. So I felt convicted of this. So I felt I should put it in its rightful place. And a really good way of slaying idols is by fasting from them. So I thought, could I fast for sport for a while? And I thought, could I do a year? So 2015, I didn't watch any sport. I didn't go to any football matches. I didn't keep in touch with what was happening in like the league or who was winning stuff. I didn't talk about it. I didn't play sport-related video games. And my wife says it was the best year of her life. I struggled to find other hobbies to fill the gap. But do you know what? It worked, probably. Now sport doesn't have the same hold on my life. I'm terrified that the Lord might ask me to do it again. So I make sure sport stays in its proper place. So I think that was the deal. But it was also quite a fun thing to do as well. In some ways, it was a good conversation starter with both Christians and non-Christians, but was a good reminder to me that anything can get in the way. And I just want all of us, with all humility, want Jesus to be the most important thing, and occasionally that's a good thing to kind of make sure our heart is in check with. Yeah, I think the psalmist says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart." That's a great prayer to pray.
So, in your personal life, in your ministry, and just having relationships with friends and colleagues and strangers, even with our ministry, sports friends, we want leaders that thrive. Right? We're trying to help them to grow in all areas of their life, spiritually, of course, socially, physically, intellectually, emotionally. We refer to Luke 2:52, where Jesus grew in wisdom and strength, favor with God, favor with man, and we want to see them grow in that, so they can see the youth that they're working with, the youth they're training to grow in the same area. So what does that thriving leadership look like in your current life? And then what advice can you give other leaders to thrive?
Yeah. Thrive first and foremost well in followership. You know, Jesus didn't call anyone to lead, but called everyone to follow him. And I think we do have lead, and we do want to be influencers. We do want to see. We are called to make disciples, but the best leaders that we can be are caused by being the best followers that we can be. And so my primary responsibility as a leader is to follow Jesus really well. And so that looks like the rhythms that we've talked about. It looks at regularly checking our heart and wanting to become the best kind of example and in character and in activity that we can be. So I think that's first thing. I think second thing I'd say is don't get comfortable. I think there's something about I don't know about you boys, but for me, the way that the enemy tempts me over the years has changed. So for me, when I was a younger man, it was some of the temptations of, going out, drinking too much. The insecurities in me sometimes got the better of me in terms of my own wanting to prove myself. Those kind of things were the ways in which I would be tempted to sin in my 20s, let's say. Do you know, I don't stay up late enough to go to a nightclub now and drink too much. I'm in bed by 9:30. That's not the way the enemy's going to get me. But do you know, the enemy might get me in terms of comfort these days. And so in terms of kind of money and greed and not pushing myself spiritually, some of those kind of things, that maybe that's a good example of the kind of idolatry of sport, actually. But there's something about getting comfortable. So in terms of thriving, follow Jesus with all that you have. And I think the other thing I'd say for leaders is, do you know what? Ministry is brilliant, but even ministry can become idolatrous. So I would say wholeheartedly love the Lord of the work more than the work of the Lord. And I think we can easily fall into the trap of being even identity being that in ministry. Our primary identity is that as being a son or a daughter of the living God. Our primary identity is that as a disciple and a follower of Jesus. And then in his generosity, God calls us to lead, join in with what he's doing. And so I think there's that, but also don't get comfortable. There's those verses about King David, when it was at the time when kings went to war, that was when he blew it with Bathsheba. He got comfortable and stayed at home. Always press in, take faith risks to take kingdom grounds. Don't get comfortable. Follow Jesus well.
So good.
I can
so
see
good.
Ben right now.
Yeah, no, the key ring. Yeah, the key ring. That's it. No, they're so good. You've given us so much good wisdom and advice, and the way you can sum it up just like that is spot on. Well, last question, Phil. You've kicked off season 5 really, really well, but let's think about that long-term thriving then. Talking about, obviously, you've been in ministry for a long time now. Last bit of advice. Obviously, we've got a lot of coaches that'll be listening in different places around the world. Last bit of advice. What does it look like to thrive long term, and to those who are listening?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I've learned quite painfully, actually, in the last few years about long-term thriving is that the Lord works on us and with us in seasons. And I say that because I've been through quite a lot of personal pain in the last few years. So all of us will remember the COVID-19 pandemic. I had a terrible pandemic. Ben, you mentioned I'm an author. My first book came out in March 2020, which is the week all the bookshops closed. I was really discouraged and disappointed. But then far more tragically, my mum had been battling with cancer. My dad died when I was 21. My mum had been battling with cancer, and she went to be with Jesus on the 8th of June. It's a hard season. 2 things got me through, though: faith in Jesus and friendship, which is why I wrote the second book around friendship. But it was, and I reflect on those moments. But there's some things that the Lord can only do in the spiritual winter that he can't do in spiritual summertime. And I think what I'd say is, in the long term, we need to be aware that seasons will come when it's hard and when you're running on fumes and when you can't depend on your natural ability and natural charisma, and you need to lean into Jesus with all that you have. And there are sometimes, I don't know about you guys, I'm sure there have been seasons where you've got up to speak, or you've got up to lead, or you've dragged yourself into some situation and you're like, God, I can't do this. I'm running on fumes. If you don't turn up, I'm dead in the water. I've had seasons like that. And I've had seasons where I was in a season about a year ago when I went to this prayer meeting, and I arrived at this prayer meeting discouraged and broken and dying inside. And you have to put this front on as a leader sometimes to kind of be part of others. And then this person leading the meeting says, I just sense from the Holy Spirit that somebody this morning is really struggling. And I just heard this, and I knew that was me, and I burst into tears. And you're like, oh, but I would also identify in that moment the season's changed for me. And the Lord also, in his generosity and kindness, sometimes brings us out of those seasons of winter into seasons of spring. And the Bible encourages us to preach the gospel in season, out of season. So I think the first thing about seasons, so and sometimes those can last for months or weeks, sometimes days, sometimes years, but change. God is the God of seasons, and those seasons can change. That's the first thing. Second thing is that there's something also in terms of the long term, being aware of the life stages that we go through. So really helpfully, I read somewhere around the kind of decades of life. Right. So in your kind of 20s, you're growing and you're learning and you're trying lots of new things and you're discerning what you're going to be doing. In your 30s, largely, you're refining. So you're saying no to something. I said no to, I closed a few doors in my life, my ministry, decide I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And you narrow kind of what the Lord is calling you to do long term. I would say that in your 40s, you're beginning to master things. So there's something about the skills that the Lord teaches you and you refine things. And so I've just entered my 40s. By the end of my 40s, I want to be the best communicator, the best author, and the best relator in terms of kind of ongoing relationships with people. The best friend that I can be. I'm fighting to master those things in my life. Then in your 50s, you begin to harvest some of the fruit of the things that you've learned, refined, and mastered. Then when you get to your kind of 60s and beyond, I think you're then beginning to pass on to the next generation. And so I think being aware of the kind of wherever you're at in the decades of life, being aware of the journey that you go on, I think can be really, really helpful. And then the final thing I'd say, another long-term thriving aim should begin to reproduce in others what the Lord has done in us. And so, when I enter my latter years of ministry, I want to see behind me a load of Timothys and those people that I've invested in that have some of my DNA, some of my heart. Jesus' legacy was 12 disciples. The 12 disciples passed on to others. Paul passed on to Timothy. There's a real sense in which we kind of want a legacy. And so I think there's something about thriving long term, which says, what are we reproducing? What culture are we changing that the kingdom of God is passed from generation to generation and the church continues to thrive beyond us, and we play our part as leaders in making that happen.
I saw Carl nodding along to the 50s and 60s, right? No, yes, that was so good, Phil. No, honestly, thank you so much for that. Loads of stuff you've shared there. We had gold bars in the last season 4. We went to Fort Knox because we had so many things. And now in season 5, we've got Phil Knox.
We brought Fort Knox to you, people.
There you go.
That should have been my nickname at the bottom. Why have we had Knoxy all these times?
I'll say what it is now. We can change it because of all the gold bars you've dropped. I think we can agree, right, Carl? We can change it. Yeah,
just the fort.
I love it. I think you should keep that with the Evangelical Alliance. Just say I'm the fort, and then people can ask you a bit more about that.
Get it on the business card.
That's it. No, we love it. But no, thank you for all the stuff you do with the Evangelical Alliance. Just, all the advocacy, unity stuff, the resources, all the things you guys do, and the gospel impact stuff. I've always appreciated from you. You're an evangelist at heart. And hearing you speak, it ministers, and it's something that ignites and something that inspires. And that's part of your anointing and call that you've got, is to do that. So thank you for what you brought today. Thank you for the way you're doing that, and appreciate your time coming in, and for bearing with me and Kyle with his accent as well. So yeah.
Bless you guys, and thanks for all you're doing with this podcast. It's brilliant.
Dog, season 5 off to a flyer.
I told you we should have done season 5 a long time ago, but you didn't listen to me. That's not what I said.
It was quite the opposite, but we are thriving now. Hey, Phil gave us some really good practical advice there, right, around how to thrive. What do you pick up from it? Loads of things in there, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's not a coach, he's not a professional athlete, but he's a professional follower of Jesus, if I can say that. His life exudes that, and that's what he wants others to understand as well. Wherever you are, whether you're a pastor, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a coach, a player, these kind of things is what he's saying is helping us to thrive, and I think that's where it's at. We can learn. We can be a discipler. We can be discipled. We can be a follower. But ultimately, we need to thrive in Jesus. So it's great.
Yeah, that was his definition: thriving every day, becoming more like Jesus. What a perfect way to start in there. But yeah, he talks about investing in others. Talks about friendship. One of his books, and he talks around this idea of followership as well. Like, be a follower. I always said, be a follower and a fisher. You know, it's like a coin. On one side, you're a follower, one side, you're a fisher. You have to be a follower. And that was something he talks about. And those seasons, right, about the Lord working in winter and then also in the decades and things like that. I think he broke it down. He's done a lot of research around different things. And I think that really, if you listen to some of his research and stuff, he gets a good load of information from people on the ground, what they're thinking, and then is able to simplify it and communicate it really well. And I think that's what he did today. So season 5, thriving. Yeah,
we're thriving, people. I mean, I challenge any of our audience members, if sport is becoming your idol, your god, to walk away from it for a year. Myself included. I'll do it if it ever comes that way, Ben. You just say, Kyle, drop it for a year.
Well, that's it. Well, I'll tell you, when he was speaking, it was nudging something to me. I gave a fantasy football like 3 years ago, and that was something that I was getting to. I was listening to podcasts about it. It was just ridiculous. And my wife said to me, "It's not even real." So it's
real to me, people.
Exactly. So, and she was like, I used to play Football Manager. I had to give that up in 2019, pre-marriage, and it was like, that wasn't real. So I was like, that was something that was not real. So she thankfully spoke that in my life. And, maybe Phil has as well, in challenging and said, hey, is that what's on the throne of your life? What is on the throne of your life? And I guarantee it will be on the podcast you listen to. It will be on your bank statement. And it will be on what do you talk about with your friends. If you're in the pub in England, or if you're wherever you are in the US, what do you spend your time talking about? And that will probably give you an indication of what's on the throne of your life. So, yeah, I was convicted, so I'm a bit worried about that. I'm going to have to think about that. I'd say, my team finished so low in the league this year. So, it's Newcastle.
You've already given up. You already started.
I've started this season. So,
oh, man, that's good. And it is true. I mean, it's like we have to do this, because if it becomes that way, then, as we always say, it becomes the sports, not the ministry. The focus is the ministry, and we've got to keep that in check.
Yeah, that's all our training. Everyone goes away with having sports in small letters, ministry in big letters. So Phil really talked about that. So good. Well, Mad Dog, we're going to thrive. I tell you what, if this season's anything like this first episode, it's going to be good, right? So what do people got to do?
Well, now that we're here, we're going to ready to thrive. You got to tell your friends, I'm going to thrive. You can tell your friends, you're going to thrive. You tell your parents, we're all going to thrive. And tell your parents, friends, the whole world can thrive, because we've already.
Every Tuesday, join our hosts and guests. Discover how you're already